My name is Chris Heaven, and I'm the CEO of Survival Dispatch. I was a member of our national powerlifting team for many years and won many state, national, and world championships. Even though I'm in great shape for being 55 years old, I am not immune to father time. Most of us feel weaker and make more trips to the bathroom as we get older. U.S. Army research has led to a breakthrough for the #1 water for older Americans. It's not a special sports drink, but a mix with essential nutrients most hydration drinks lack. Keyword, hydration. These nutrients are proven to enhance muscle strength, reduce soreness, and improve bladder health. A Texas doctor leveraged this research and formulated a drink mix to help you stay strong. Click the link below for up to 44% off at nativehydrate.com/dispatch, plus free shipping and a free gift. This is one of the best deals I've seen for high-quality BCAA drink mixes. All right, and we're back. We've got JJ Carroll joining us shortly, another 10 or 15 minutes. I've got Jeff in the green room right now. I'll bring him on stage in just a minute. Tonight's episode of Survival Dispatch News is brought to you by Native Path, which is the branched chain amino acid drink you all just seen. CCW Safe. Stay tuned on that. We've got the guys from CCW Safe coming on next week. It's going to be very eye-opening for a number of people. We worked on this relationship for 18 months. We were very pragmatic in picking what we felt was by far the best choice for self-defense coverage. Sawyer water filters. Stay tuned for more information on that as well. Their quality control is by far the best we've seen. We've tested countless water products, and I'll tell you, about a year ago, I said to Cindy, I said, I pretty much had enough of these water treatment filtration products because a lot of it's snake oil and it's just absolute junk, and it turned into what I felt like was a massive waste of time. But the guys from Sawyer convinced me to take a look at their product, and I'm happy to say they don't fall into that category of snake oil. Also, November 21st, there's the top link down below. I'm doing a seminar with Advantage Gold, top 5 preps that you need to get done before we hit January the 6th, especially before January the 20th. You have no obligation to buy anything, but if you sign up, Survival Dispatch gets a small stipend. We want to have a real blowout on this one. We're hoping to have 1,000 people there. I'm going to be covering some exclusive content there that will not be covered anywhere else. And last shameless plug, patreon.com/survival dispatch. We have free and paid memberships, all kinds of content over there. We'll just leave it at that. Let's bring Jeff into the conversation. Jeff, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good.
No, your volume sounds a little bit low.
Or maybe I'm just not close.
That could be it. Absolutely. All right. So since Mike couldn't join us tonight, once again, the conflicted question falls upon me. If I don't remember to bring it up at the end, Jeff, it falls on you. You're like the co-pilot on the conflicted question. So I thought this one was actually a really good question for this particular point in time. Do you feel that our country portrays enough strength when dealing with rogue nations? If not, what proactive steps should be taken to increase national security? I really, really thought that was interesting based on some of the news that we've heard in the past, 72 hours, let's say. There's been some pretty amazing things happening around the world. I love how Hamas says, the war's over. We don't want to be at war with anybody anymore because they know that Trump will turn them into a freaking parking lot. So tonight's topic is something that we've touched on several times in the past, which is why we asked JJ to come back. It's an absolutely brutal distinction to have in America that we are the world capital of child sex trafficking. I can't believe that we're in that role at all. It's an embarrassment, to be quite frank, on the national stage. So I've got a conversation between Benny Johnson and Kash Patel that I want to share. It's almost 3 minutes long, but I'm going to play the whole thing because this really kicks off tonight's episode. And, I think it's safe to say with Trump back in office, it's highly likely that we're going to see the Epstein list and the Diddy list at some point in time. As a matter of fact, I would bet money on it. All right, let's get started.
And then when we go back to DOJ and FBI, we still don't have all the list, all the FISAs, all of the stuff they did to 275,000 Americans illegally in 1 year. Put that out there. I'm not saying put in the recipe on how to do it. We can keep the hood on the engine, but we can show the American people how they violated our rights. And to me, what you said is the most important: restoring trust.
Yes.
In our agencies and departments. That the way to do that is not to get a piñata and just punch them mercilessly and hoping for some bubble gum to pop out. The way to do that is to literally give the American people the truth. And that's what they feared about Donald Trump. He's going to come in there and maybe give him the Epstein list and maybe give him the P. Diddy list. You know, he's going to come up there and maybe do all these things, and they are terrified.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the reason why Jimmy Kimmel was crying last night on his program. But also, I believe that this is something that the American public desperately want. And most importantly, this is how you restore honor and how you restore trust. Now, many may not know, some will, that you are personally responsible for the research on the Russiagate collusion. Everything we know about Russiagate, and we know maybe like less than half of what really happened with Russiagate, Kash Patel is the one who found it out with Devin Nunes. So, Kash, you have an excellent pedigree in rooting out the truth. Will we get the full Diddy list? Will we get Epstein? Will we get JFK? Will we get the rest of what happened with Russia collusion?
That's what I want. That's what I want as me as an American citizen. That's what I want in terms of achieving that restoration of respect for government in DC that's been gone for like 50, 60 years, right? I had said on the campaign trail when I was on the Team Trump bus tour or surrogate somewhere, I said, America has a chance to retire the dynastic families that have rained down corruption in Washington, D.C. on November 5th. You could have retired the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, and the Obamas. And you know what, Benny? For the first time, I get to say they did. And part of that mandate that they delivered to Donald Trump is simply they want the truth.
Yes.
And I don't know why it has been, well, I do know why, but I believe and hope President Trump is going to go in there and just be a vehicle, a conveyor belt for the truth, and just put it out nonstop. Yes. Agriculture department, education, labor, all of it, everywhere. And Congress is going to play such a critical role in these oversight investigations. Just think of what you can accomplish if you have a director or a secretary who actually works with the Republican chairman or chairwoman on oversight. It's incredible, not just for corruption revelation purposes, but to see how we actually budget and stop lighting your money on fire.
Wow. You said a mouthful there. Speaking of which, Jeff, did you catch that Kash is supposedly rumored to be Trump's #1 pick to be the head of the CIA?
I wish he would get it and he would just start rooting stuff out. I mean, there's just so much waste and so much abuse. And yeah, the CIA is supposed to be a foreign intel organization, right? Meaning it collects information on foreign countries, foreign nationals, foreign people, foreign organizations. They shouldn't be doing squat in the U.S. unless it is to collect information on foreign nationals who may be in the United States at the time, or, things like that. But, they should not be collecting information on U.S. citizens. They should not be talking to social media about censoring people. I'm retired CIA. We had to swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution just like everybody else. We need to hold them to that. If they don't do it, fire them.
Well, I think he'd be a great pick for the head of the CIA for all the reasons that you mentioned. And I mean, you're very well read. You pay attention to everything that's going on. So I'm guessing the answer to this question will be yes. But did it shock you and stand out during Trump's first tenure that my reaction was, where the heck does all this child sex trafficking? Where's it coming from? Because we didn't hear anything before he unleashed stuff in his first term. And it seemed like it was a weekly event. There were, like here in Florida, child sex trafficking ring busted, 200 kids saved. The next day there's one in Ohio, 100 people, 100 kids saved. It was mind blowing at the time. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, before that, you always heard about, pedophiles, kidnap, rape, murder some little kid somewhere, but it was usually a one-off. It wasn't an organized ring. It was, this pervy guy and that pervy guy, and when we lived in Texas, we had a guy in our neighborhood who was a child. He was molesting his stepson, and he ended up going to jail. Thank God, he got busted, and he got a real judge, and I think he got like 2 life terms plus 86 years. So he ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
But that's what neat. But they were just one-offs for the most part. Or you got a guy, maybe it was a little league coach who molested 3 or 4 kids on his team. But it wasn't this hundreds of kids at a time kind of thing, or these deep, or it's like it wasn't organized like that. And it's really getting creepy with that, because the more we learn, the bigger it gets, and that's disturbing, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, when I initially saw this stuff happening during Trump's first term, and having not heard much as far as, like you said, these large rings being busted, I kind of thought it was something that just came out of nowhere. But in reality, we've now learned that this goes back a long, long ways and was kept under wraps for a long, long time. Specific to the Epstein list and the Diddy list, my personal opinion is that when you see some, notorious person like an actor or a musician, whatever the case may be, and they take a really hard stance against Donald Trump, I'm absolutely convinced that every last one of them is tied to something like Epstein or Diddy, and that there's underage sexually deviant acts on their part. I've read some absolutely horrific stuff on John Podesta lately, and I knew he was involved in this in years gone by. So that's not a new revelation, but I'll tell you what was a new revelation. Pardon me. He reportedly would dress up to look like Jesus Christ. And then when he raped these kids, basically dressed up as Jesus Christ to try and get them to hate Christians and Christianity. I mean, have you seen the pictures from way back when Obama was in office, of the pictures that were in John Podesta's home?
No, I have not.
So, I mean, I don't have anything queued up for it in tonight's broadcast because I didn't think of it, but there are all kinds of satanic images in John Podesta's home. Like, I mean, very flagrant stuff. It's not something like, maybe that's related to Satanism. I mean, we're talking straight out. It's absolutely horrific stuff. And I'll tell you what, I'm no secret. I'm very happy to have Donald Trump reelected. I think he saved our country. I think he may have saved the world, to be quite honest with you. And I mean, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to in this second term, but this child sex trafficking stuff, we need to root every single one of these, evil people out and stop this shit. I mean, it's like I said, it's not because it's a national embarrassment. It's because it is absolutely, it's beyond words evil.
Yeah.
And knowing what I know now, which I didn't know in his first term, but seeing how effective he was in galvanizing law enforcement agencies to crack down on this stuff, I think we're going to see some really brutal stuff come out very quickly in his second term, as far as big rings being broken and stuff. Did I tell you about the accountant that was beside my office?
Yeah, you told me about that in Florida. Yeah. And
Yeah,
they were putting up the kids in the motel next door.
Yeah, I won't tell the whole story because I don't want to bore anybody with it. But suffice it to say, number one, when the cops showed up, and I was the only one in the executive building at the time, and they introduced themselves as the Amtrak police, I kind of looked at them sideways, and they're like, "We know there's only 40 of us in the entire country," and which surprised me. But this guy in this strip plaza next to us, he was a CPA, had a bookkeeping service, was transporting child victims via trains. And that's why Amtrak got involved. 128 kids over the course of 90 days were sex trafficked in this old Florida motel. You know, the ones like when we were much younger, and that was really the only choice you had for accommodation in Florida was the old strip motels. It was one of those really seedy, and it was just mind-blowing. But we let them use one of our box trucks. They set up surveillance equipment in that. We let them set up in one of our retail gun stores, and they were able, when they went up in the drop ceiling, somebody had drilled through. Hey, my new camera just did a zoom in thing. I'm not sure how it did that. Not sure how to get it go back either. Threw me off. All right, we'll switch over to another camera. Anyway, I lost my train of thought now. The camera threw me off.
Up in the drop ceiling.
Oh, yeah. So they went up in the drop ceiling and somebody had bored holes for conduit through the firewall, which was cinder blocks. They were able to stick microphones through a couple of those holes, and the whole thing went down inside of 48 hours. Unbelievable. Like absolutely unbelievable. You know, incredible. So for those of you who don't know, Amtrak have a police force. They're national police. So anyway, moving on to the next one at hand. And this is a discussion with AJ as far as Trump getting ready to, you know, go on the war path with regards to human trafficking. So I'm not going to play it. Quite possibly just by that text where my cursor is being on here, we'll get this video get slapped down. Every time I mention that at night, it's no later than the following morning, many times the same night. Sure enough, there's, you know, they've I'm trying to think of what the word that's in the warning, but they basically take the emphasis off your video. Like they don't recommend it to anybody. So it's just kind of like this balancing act, right? Between, you know, do we share this information, which is good information, people need to hear it, and have our videos penalized and suppressed or not? And, you know, there's some things I won't say on here because we'll get a channel deletion. We don't want that to happen, but there's other stuff like this that puts us at risk of having the video suppressed, but it still helps get the information out. We've had a pretty good run this week as far as viewership is concerned. So we're definitely going in the right path. So here's an interesting one on this reporter went with the cops when they busted this stash house, in their words. And this is where they were, you know, trafficking, child sex trafficking kids out of this place, in of all places, in Arizona, in your backyard, Jeff. And somewhere in this article, and I'm not going to read through it and go through it because I think JJ just entered the green room, but I want to say that the number was $250,000 per year made from each of their victims. Isn't that crazy? All right, so bring JJ in. JJ Carroll, how are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
What's up, JJ?
Hey, Jeff, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good.
Pardon my camera. I got a couple new cameras and a hardware mixer here, JJ, and I did some gesture with my hands and it zoomed in on me, and I don't know how to get it to zoom back. I may actually have to unplug this one and reset it just to get it to move away from me. But, you know, Jeff and I were just talking about how during Trump's first term, there was a big increase in arrests for child sex trafficking. We saw some really big arrests, you know, 100 kids saved, 200 kids saved. And, you know, pretty confident that that's going to happen again. AJ did an article on it recently saying Trump is going to go all out on it. And I know this is like one of the main topics of concern to you, and you've done a ton of content on it. So you put something up on X here that caught my eye. I'm going to bring it up right now and have you explain this situation. This blows me away. If I'm reading this right, JJ, are you saying that somebody can access this information with virtually no effort at all?
Well, yeah, you have the dark web. That's where all the pedophiles, they're sharing all, they're sharing all their content. We're the world's largest consumer of child pornography.
That just blows.
You're talking hundreds of millions, if not billions, of pictures and videos. So when you have that cachet, right, of information or documents, do you know how many people it takes to consume that? It's like hard narcotics, right? We can get mad at the cartels, right? You're bringing all over the cocaine, heroin, fentanyl. We hate you. You suck. Blah blah blah. Why are they bringing it over? Because we're demanding it. We're a consumer. Why do you think the cartels are bringing children over to be sexually abused and sold? Because we're demanding it. If we're going to fix this problem, be it narcotics, human smuggling, child sex trafficking. If we're going to do any of that, we have got to put the mirror up and say, I want America. Here's a mirror. I want you to look into it because you are the problem. You're the problem. If you don't demand sex with children, if you don't demand narcotics, the cartels they literally go away. They disappear. It's like Apple. Let's say Apple the iPhone comes out and it sucks and nobody wants to buy it. Apple just disappears.
Right.
We'll read about it in a newspaper or an article. Hey, this Apple just kind of, their management's bad. Same thing with Google. Same with anything, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. If there's not a demand for it, it just goes away. We demand sex with children. Think about what I'm saying, guys.
I am. It's absolutely mind-numbing, JJ. So just ballpark, because it's not something I've ever looked into. This demand, if you had to take a guess out of 330 million-ish people in the country, what percentage or what number of those people do you think are driving this demand?
That's a great question. I asked that to several of the people I interviewed for our documentary. And here's what they told me. First off, they said, I don't know. But I followed up a question. Okay, you don't know how many. If I made you the czar of eradicating child pornography and child sex trafficking, tell me how many law enforcement officers you need for your department. And I was literally blown off my seat. I could not believe it because they answered, I'll start with 500,000. I said, what? I said, dude, you know that there's only 660,000 law enforcement officers in America, state, local, and federal. And he goes, I know. I need to start with 500,000. Then I'll tell you how many I need after that. I said, okay, hold on. Is it that bad? And he goes, and this is FBI agent, CIA agent, so people that are in the know. They said, once you peel it back, you are going to be both shocked and devastated to learn that your country is infested with pedophiles. And I'm like, oh my God. And but when you start to think about the enormity of the amount of product that's out there for the child videos and all the selling, how does your government lose 320,000 children? 320,000 children are gone. Your president-elect has said multiple times, and I quote, a lot of them are already dead. A lot of them are already dead. What does he know? Well, he knows they're being raped to death, or they're having their organs harvested, or they're being used for evil satanic rituals. There you have it. Let's go one step further, guys, because we get fixated on things like when I'm doing my documentary, I'm kind of fixated on unaccompanied alien children, UACs, because that's what my documentary is about. The federal government brought over 500,000 children and lost them all. But when you dive into the amount of children lost in America, American children, the numbers are so broad. They claim it's anywhere from 400 to 800,000 a year. They can't even narrow it down. And they do it on purpose, because they don't want you to know what the number is. The number that people are sticking to is about 1,000 to 2,000 children go missing every day. Let me repeat that. And let's put that into context. That means an elementary school or a middle school or a high school literally gets sucked off the planet and they're gone every day. That means I always play this game. Let's say that I'm crazy, okay? And the data is skewed, okay? We'll play that game. So let's say it's 500,000 children average. Let's just say 500. That's an easy number. So in the last 4 years, I'm not blaming Joe Biden for this, but I blame him for the unaccompanied alien children. But after 4 years, 2 million American children, 500,000 unaccompanied alien children, foreign children, 2.5 million. Let's play the game that I'm 50% wrong. The data the government is giving me is wrong. That's 1.25 million children gone. Are you okay with that? Let's play even a worse game that I'm insane and I'm 90% crazy. So only 10% is the matter. So you're still sitting there telling me you're okay with 250,000 children disappear, never to be seen again? Are you? Let's play the game. I'll even go farther. I'll say I'm 99% wrong. 1% is the truth. 25,000 children go missing in 4 years, and like a spaceship picks them up. You're okay with that? You see how the absurdity of this is? It's 2.5 million. 2.5 million children disappeared in America, and nobody cares. Let me ask you guys another question. Do you find it sad that you have an organization called ATF that focuses on alcohol, tobacco, and firearms? You got DHS that's all about homeland security and illegal aliens and immigration. You have DEA that's all about narcotics, FBI about whatever they do now, but internal crime. But nothing to stop the scourge of child exploitation and kidnapping and sexual and labor trafficking. I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe it doesn't exist just because. I believe it doesn't exist because there is the elites are just swimming in child pornography and pedophilia.
So you're on mute, Jeff. Go ahead.
Now, every time they bust somebody for child porn, and you got to read the articles, and the amount of pornographic material they find, it's almost always in the hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of images. I mean, I couldn't even look at a million images. You know, that's how long would that take if you won a second? It would take a long time. But yeah, these people are just sick and evil, and their evil is insatiable. It's, you know, you can't even comprehend how evil these people are.
But when I agree with you 100%, they're evil. And we are talking about not Democrat, Republican, because it's a uniparty. We're talking about in America, good versus evil. Satan is walking on our land in America. He's roaming free. And if you don't believe that, you're a fool. You're an absolute, look, I'm not a theologian, but I'm not an idiot either. You can tell that there's evil roaming the earth. It's roaming the earth. It has consumed America. Why do you think all the countries in the world hate us, besides the fact that we blow them to smithereens and try to tell them what to do? Well, they hate our child pornography. They hate our death by food poison of McDonald's, etc. They hate us because we are importing trash into their communities. And one of the pieces of trash is our pornography and child porn. They've had it. I don't blame them. I'm disgusted by my own country. But when you really realize that your federal government facilitated the trafficking of 500,000 children, then you have to come to grips that your government is evil and your government's the enemy.
So you've probably heard me say this before, JJ, but my opinion is the only way I can square all the things that our government's done for many years is that it's under the direct control of our enemies. I can't find any other way to explain their decisions, which are consistently terrible for Americans and good for everybody else. Number one, I had a in-depth discussion with a theologian today, really, really interesting guy, David Sorensen. And I would encourage actually everybody to go check him out. We're going to have him on the show here. And I should actually find his website and bring it up. He's produced, I want to say, like 20 feature-length films on the cabal, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it. And it's pretty interesting. And during our discussion, I said to him, I said, well, not only do I feel that our government is under the direct control of our enemies, I feel the Vatican is as well. And I don't know how do you square all the things that the Pope has said in recent years with regards to, you know, pedophilia, transgenderism, everything else. That stuff would have never been said when we were kids. There's
no, and it's very hard for me because I'm Catholic, and he disgusts me. He's and the idea that he's infallible, that he's handpicked by God, it's laughable. In fact, you know, when you look at the Catholic Church. And I love my faith, and I believe in the doctrines of my faith and of Jesus. I do not trust or have respect for the facilitators of my faith. I don't. They are pedophiles. They've allowed pedophilia run rampant. They've allowed homosexual behavior to run rampant within the ranks of the priesthood. There needs to be, not only in America, but in our religious institutions that go outside America, we need a cleansing. We need a cleansing of our spiritual lives in America, our political lives. Our food needs to be cleaned. Every part of America has to be cleansed. And it's not just the Catholic Church. This is in all faiths, but it's just more prominent because he's the most powerful religious leader in the world. And he is a Marxist. He's just a straight up Marxist. He
100%.
put, I hope I get his name right, McGormick, I believe it is, his right-hand man, his cardinal. He's a pedophile. And he brought him he was excommunicated by Pope Benedict, and he brought him back. That needs to tell everything you need to know, man. That cardinal was shipping pedophile priests across the world and giving them new identities. So when you move a priest from, say, Virginia to Oregon, the people in Oregon have no idea. We're not doing background checks on Father Joe. We're just saying, hey, Father Joe looks like a great guy. I'm thinking, oh, well, thank God we have a priest. He seems like he's very knowledgeable in theology and God. Okay. No, he's raping our children. And you knew about it in Virginia, and you did nothing about it. It's the same thing in our government. Hey, you've held congressional hearings about them losing 85,000 children in 2023. It's 2024, and now they're at 320,000. And you haven't done anything from 23 to 24, and you're not doing anything now. In fact, you're facilitating it more. So now, if we're going to talk about the Pope and our religious leaders this way, we have to talk about our political leaders this way. You know who the pedophiles are. You're feeding the pedophiles the children. There is no other, just like you said, there's no other explanation except outside forces are driving our country. I'm telling you, there is no other explanation for the open borders except our government intentionally created open borders to fundamentally transform America. And then one of the side businesses was the importation of child sex. That's it. And you can't tell me anything else. I'm not going to hear it. I would love for me to be wrong, but I have yet to hear anyone give me a counter argument to tell me what the hell's going on.
Do you remember when there was the scandal in Massachusetts? I don't remember. It was either the late 80s, early 90s over altar boys being molested by priests there. And it's not funny, but I remember somebody saying years ago, somebody asked me a question. They said, do you know what the most dangerous job in America is? And I said, no, what's that? And they said, being an altar boy in Boston. You know, it's like they say, everything that has an element of humor to it has an element of truth to it, you know, sort of thing.
But, but at the same time, we're talking about men of God. Right. And those priests, just like if there's a dirty cop, we begin to figure it out over time, right? We just know it. We're like, okay, that guy's dirty. All right. I hope OIA or Internal Affairs is looking at him. I got to talk to somebody, right? We're going to do that. The priest knew. The priest knew. How do I know the priest knew? Because the bishops knew. And the bishops hid the priest and shipped them across the states. They are more guilty than the pedophiles. But we didn't eradicate those people from our faith. We didn't. Why didn't we do that? Why are we not eradicating the pedophiles that are running our government, our elites? Look, Jeffrey Epstein had 20,000 DVDs. I don't think I have like 10 DVDs. He has 20,000 with all pictures and videos of our politicians and elites raping children. So, and yet we don't know them.
Give me your thoughts on that. Do you think Trump's going to blow that out? He's going to make it public?
Here's what I think. Everything Trump is saying right now says he's going to do everything. If Trump does not do everything, he failed. He failed. And now when I mean everything, I mean close the border, destroy the Department of Education, destroy the FBI, the intel agencies, take down the Federal Reserve, disclose 9/11, JFK assassination, Epstein, P. Diddy. I mean, I want everything out. Like he said, well, if I would have disclosed JFK, it would have really been bad. Well, that's not. I love you, Donald Trump. I think you are sent by God. I really do. I believe you. I believe God turned your head because God has taken you to be the president. I have very high demands of what I need you to do, and I'm trying to give you as much grace as possible because I can't even fathom the amount of pressure you have on you, sir. And to look, I get tired after a couple interviews and answering questions and making decisions. Can you imagine every single day you're making thousands of decisions, and that not only are you making those decisions, but half the country's trying to sabotage you, and your own party, which they did in 2016 to 2020, sabotaged you at every angle you took? That is exhausting. So I give this man immense amount of grace. I just want him. What I'm hoping that Donald Trump realizes, and he's a very smart man, he has to understand that the left has given him no option, meaning you don't have a choice, Donald Trump. If you don't go with both guns blazing and blasting everyone, they are not only going to kill you, they are going to kill your family, your children, and your grandchildren. They are. They're just going to do it. And I feel as if he feels that I'm in a corner and they've given me no option. Look, you guys are alpha males. You know this. The very worst thing that you can do to a man is paint him in a corner and give him no options but to fight. That's it. Okay, I'm going to die. All right, I'm going to die. Here we go. We're going to go. If I'm going to die, you're going to die with me, and I'm going to kill as many people as I can. I'm going to attack you, and that Trump has to be in attack mode. Has to be.
There's an old adage that says the guy who has nothing to lose is a really scary guy, just like you described.
He is a frightening man because look, I always there's this saying that is like a story that this man is on his porch and he has a great life. He has a wife and family. He built this house. He's on his land. He just wants to be left alone. I just want to sit here in my rocking chair. I want to have a drink. I want to smoke my cigar. And I want to hear some music, have my wife come out, give me a kiss. I just want to watch my kids. I lived a good life. But you keep coming into my world and you keep forcing me to stand up on my porch. And I'm telling you, and I'm begging you, please don't make me do that. I don't want to leave my porch. I like it here. I love my life. But you not only pull me out of my porch, you make me walk my land, and now you make me walk into battle. Now, what you don't understand, what you just did, you killed my life. I can never go back because I'm never going to be that man again, because I'm going to have to do horrific, violent things to you, things that I don't even know that I have the capacity to do. I'm going to be shocked at what I'm going to do because I am so filled with anger and resentment and rage because you killed my life. That's how I feel. And I believe millions of men like us feel like this, that you have forced me into this battle that I don't want to be in, but I now are in it. I'm immersed in it. So now I'm going to show you what real men do. I don't wear a ponytail. I don't have skinny arms. I'm not obese. I don't have mental illness. I am a very determined man, and I have nothing to lose now. So here we go. Buckle up. Because history is showing men like us, when we get to this point, we do atrocities. We don't just hurt and maim. We do things that only the devil could do. But you have forced me to behave like a savage, so now I'm going to be a savage. I believe that.
I screwed that adage up a bit. It just came to me. The adage is the guy who has nothing to lose is a scary guy, is the proper saying. Just quickly back to, you mentioned the number of decisions that Trump makes on a daily basis. So I grew up in the tech industry, worked in the tech industry for years, was a big fan of Apple for many, many years for a whole bunch of technical reasons that I won't get into, but did not care for Steve Jobs' politics and definitely don't care for his widow's politics. But do you know why he always wore a black turtleneck and matching jeans? Why he was dressed the same every single day?
No, I didn't know. I don't know. I think I heard it, but I don't remember.
So he had 100 identical black turtlenecks, 100 pairs of identical jeans, 100 pairs of briefs, 100 pairs of socks, everything that matched, because he went to the Orient after he left Hewlett Packard early in his career. Him and Woz were there. And he really took a liking to Buddhism and stuff like that. And somebody basically told him, this has been proven true since then, that we each have a finite number of decisions that we can make in a day. So when you go to your wardrobe, your closet, and you look at it and you're trying to decide what to wear each day, that comes off your tally of decisions that you can make for the day. And you probably noticed that Donald Trump always wears the same tie, same shirt, same jacket. It's very rare, other than if he's on the golf course, to wear something different. But I just thought that was really interesting on Steve Jobs' part, that he's like keeping decisions in the piggy bank so that he can make the important ones. Steve Jobs would call CEOs in Silicon Valley at 2:00 in the morning and say, your icon for your app looks like shit. I want it changed by tomorrow, or I'm going to kick you off our platform, sort of thing. I mean, he was just like Trump. He didn't sleep.
Yeah.
And he made huge decisions to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. So before Jeff throws some questions at you, I read, and I know you'll know at least what the number is directionally speaking. I read that the bad guys are making $200,000 to $250,000 a year off of each of their victims. And if I go at the high end and I took the number of 2.5 million children into child sex trafficking, that's $625 billion a year. That's 3/4 of what our military budget is.
Well, I know that it's lucrative, as lucrative or really close to the narcotic trade. And I know that because after 24 years in the Border Patrol and decades prior to me, all the old timers would tell me the narcos never, ever got into the human smuggling because it's so dirty. They just didn't, because it's perishable. You have to feed them, clothe them, then they're whining, then they have to get medicine, whatever they need, because they're your product. Or I can take a bundle of cocaine or marijuana or heroin, and they're not talking to me. So they never, and they hated the human smugglers. The human smugglers made things dirty. But the narcotic smugglers realized, wait a minute, Joe Biden has now removed the Border Patrol from the border. All I have to do is now push my child across the border with a lanyard or a note tag on it, and then the Border Patrol will turn them over to NGOs. NGOs will then drive or fly my child that I own, to my cartel buddy in the north of America. So we took out all of the cost, all of the risk, everything, and the United States government became the smuggler of children. And the narco smugglers were able to decide, wait a minute, I can charge $200, $300, $400, $1,000 for somebody come in and rape little Juan that's 5 years old. And I can do that to Juan 10, 15, 20 times a day until I kill him, until he's raped to death. Now, I go sell my cocaine. That same guy that's going to rape Juan is going to do a line of coke, but I can't resell that line of coke. Yeah. It's gone, but I can resell little Johnny's body, or that 13-year-old girl from Ecuador. I could have her trained by 20, 30, 40 men in a night. This is what's happening in America.
The first person who brought that to my attention was Victor Avila. And we were discussing Tren de Aragua, and he said that their number one activity is child sex trafficking. And I had read that, they're essentially, they don't have any loyalties anywhere. Whoever wants to pay the money, that's what they'll go. That's what, and do, whether it's another cartel, organized crime, whatever. And then Victor said, but they can make way more money off this child sex trafficking. It's recurring revenue. And I want to say that don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he said that the average lifespan was 3 years. At the end of 3 years, the victims either committed suicide or they were worn out, and the bad guys knocked them off. But Victor's numbers were the same as yours, by the way. He said 10, 15, 20 times a day. It's
just stop for a second and think about what we're saying here, guys. So if a woman, just an average American woman, gets raped, horrific, right? It's just horrific. That one rape will stay with that woman. I don't care how much faith she has or how much counseling she goes to, and that's going to become a part of her. It's going to become a part of her for the rest of her life. I'm a man. I cannot imagine what it's like to be tied down and be raped. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying through research, it stays with the woman. It never leaves her. It becomes part of her.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's one time, guys. There are people that have been raped. I saw Tim Ballard state this. They have people that have girls that have been raped 60,000 times. 60,000 times.
The numbers are staggering. I mean, Jeff, go ahead if you have something. You're on mute.
You know, what I was going to say is, I think what has turned this into such a big business more recently, okay, one, there's supply and demand. Obviously, there's a demand for this, and we need to address that. But the other thing is the ease of doing business. In the old days, you had to run the risk of getting caught crossing the border with some little kid, or the risk of transporting that child from, the Rio Grande Valley somewhere up to New York. Well, now there is no risk. You just walk them across. And then the United States government, our tax dollars, feed them, clothe them, and transport them.
Yep.
So if to put it in a livestock scenario, it's like you buy a cow or a calf, I should say, and somebody else feeds it, takes it to the vet, make sure it's fat, make sure it's healthy, gets it all the food and water, and then they slaughter it, and all I do is collect the meat. And that's a great business model for them. They have very little expenses and almost no hassle.
None.
Because we're doing it for them.
Yep. It's even worse than that, Jeff. So under Donald Trump, there was very, very strict policy and regulation, meaning sponsors were regulated, background checks, people living in the house for background check, follow-up background check, DNA testing. Now there's no DNA testing, none. So, and here's the even crazier. So I'm a Border Patrol agent, and I have a man stand in front of me. Their kid is like a sack of potatoes, drugged up to the point of it's barely existing. And I asked that guy, when's your child born? What's the date of birth? And they can't tell me. And then I now want a DNA test. Do you know that I have to get consent from him to get a DNA test? So that man can tell me, no, go pound sand. This is my child. And guess what I have to do? Okay, sir, please get on that bus. That bus is Catholic Charities. It's going to take you to where you need to go.
JJ, I want to back up just quickly to a comment you made earlier that we would have to inject 500,000 law enforcement agents into the system to keep up with this. And as you noted, there's only 660,000 law enforcement, local all the way up to the feds. Add the child sex trafficking plus the, mass deportations that Tom Homan's going to undertake. How do we increase manpower to that level to actually accomplish these goals? The only suggestion that I've heard from anybody, there's a handful of sheriffs in Texas, and there's Sheriff Richard Jones in Butler County, Ohio, who has been going out and deputizing private citizens and spending a lot of money on getting them trained. So they're kind of like an auxiliary to augment law enforcement. But the numbers are staggering. Like just off the top of your head, if we're at 650, 660, something like that, and you add 500 on child sex trafficking, how many do you need to do the mass deportations on top of that? Another 500,000?
Well, you're going to do mass deportations. You're going to get about half of the illegals are going to leave on their own because they're not going. If you make it impossible from work and stuff, you're going to need 20,000 arrests are going to happen. Meaning there's going to be 20 million terrorists, soldiers, gang members, etc. Okay, it's not going to be pretty, guys. Every one of those encounters, meaning those arrests of 20 million people, I'm going to say 75% of them are going to involve some level of force to deadly force. That means 75% of 20 million, I'm being generous, is about 15 million. You're going to have 15 million use of forces in America. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's going to be a bloodbath. And I predict, and I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I know I'm not. You're going to see in-line deaths, in line of duty deaths skyrocket. It's just going to be. And then the only way that you're going to do this is you are going to look, in my documentary, I interview this gentleman, Basil, and Baz says, I have gone for the last 10 years and talked to the pedophiles in jail. And I asked them, what is one thing that I could have done, that we, the government, could have done to stop you from raping children? You know what he said? If I knew you were going to kill me, I would not do it. But since I knew that I would get probably 5 to 7 and end up doing 3, and you would feed me and give me my medicine and stuff, that's a risk I could take. So for everybody that says, well, I don't believe in the death penalty, I think you're a moron. Number one. Number two, you're gutless. And number three, if somebody raped your child, you're going to do what? Talk to them? Put them in jail for 7 years? Let me tell you what would happen for me, just so everyone's clear. I would find that person. I would make him bite a curb, and I would brain stomp him to death. And then I would get on my knees and I would beg God to bring him back to life so I could do it all over again. And I would do that till I died of exhaustion. That's what I would do. But we don't have men like this. We have a nation of beta males that are scared and they want to talk about feelings. And we have gutless people, and we have pedophilia running rampant in every upper echelon of our society, from P. Diddy and the pedophile Hollywood. Look at what they're putting out in Hollywood and Disney. I had to cut Disney. I had to cut it from my cable because I don't want that pedophile trash in my house.
Yeah.
But you have Epstein. You have major political leaders, businessmen, Hollywood types that are raping children, and no one says a damn thing. That's maybe that's what makes me the maddest, guys, is no one will talk about it. No one will say it out loud. It's as if, well, they were having sex with underage people. No, you jackasses. It's called raping minors. Words matter. Words.
Yeah.
Why do we speak words? Because they have meaning. So say them correctly.
Before you go, Jeff, words matter. What on earth is with the left coming up with this acronym MAP, minor attracted person, and framing it like that's okay? If they don't act on it, it's okay. It's not okay.
We've seen it with, they went from, different names. They used to say wetback back in the old days, and that was considered derogatory. And then you call them illegal aliens. You can't call them that anymore. Oh, they're undocumented migrants. It's like, no, they're illegal aliens. Call them what they are. They're invaders. And, MAP, minor attracted person, they're pedophiles. They're child rapists. We need to call them what they are. Mm-hmm. It's just like they say, she was a victim of sexual assault. No, she was raped. Let's call it what it is. Let's be honest here. But like Epstein got busted, I don't remember how many years before he died, and let out. And he got out, and all he did was move his operations from New York City to this island. Mm-hmm. And it's like, who in the FBI says, hey, wait a minute, we have a convicted child molester who has bought a jet and now shuttles people back and forth to an island in the Caribbean. Hey, maybe we should take a look at this. But no, they don't, because the people on that plane are Bill Clinton, among others. Mm-hmm. There's all the rich and the powerful, and nobody wants to put their hand in the garbage disposal and turn it on.
Yeah. So both of you are educated. Both of you have law enforcement, quasi law enforcement experience. I'm a college dropout, so I'm not educated like you guys. But my feeling is that all of these people we're discussing, that you can't reform them no matter what you do. I don't believe you can reform rapists. And I wanted to hear what you guys had to say on that, because I think that goes straight to the death penalty. Like you said, why are we paying millions of dollars, at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, to incarcerate people who can never be reformed?
Well, and I think JJ will back me up on this, but the recidivism rate for child molestation, child rape, whatever you want to call it, is basically 100%. They aren't cured. The guy who had, raped the kid in my neighborhood in Texas back in the 90s, well, when he goes to trial, we found out he'd done it before.
Yeah.
He'd been caught before, but he had a wealthy family who paid for some high-powered attorney and got him out after a year or two. The thing about the death penalty, the recidivism rate is zero.
And we're
Zero.
not
That's
talking
good.
about death penalty of he said, she said, and I'm 19 and she's 17 and no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about you're a 30-year-old man. We found your DNA, your semen in a 3-year-old girl's vagina. Now, you have 10 seconds to explain to me how that happened. Go. Oh, you don't have an explanation. You're dead.
Yeah.
Killed. I don't want any appeals. Look, is it the DNA? Yes, that's his DNA. 100% sure? Yes, it is. Now explain it to me. No, you can't. Okay, you die. But we don't live in that world. We live in a Renaissance time, right? We live in this quasi, we're better than the people before us. I love that. Well, we're better than the Romans. The Romans, they got conquered because, well, that'll never happen to us, or the Greeks. Are you kidding me? Those two great empires dwarfed us from apples to apples. And we're allowing illegal aliens into our country that are raping and killing our women and children. And we're saying nothing as men. Nothing. Zero. The men are the problem. In the real world, men like us back in the day would have just handled this ourselves. We'd just handle it ourselves.
Well,
we would just take care of it. And you know what? The rest of the men would applaud at us.
Yeah.
Hey, that guy, I'm going to hire him to do a job in my house because that guy's a man. Now we're throwing in jail.
Well, true story. When I was 12, I went hunting with my grandfather. He was born in 1899. He's of that generation. We were deer hunting, and he's driving me through Plummerville, Arkansas, this little town up in the mountains where he had grown up. And there's this huge oak tree. And he says, I saw my first hanging from that tree. And I'm 12 years old, curious. I said, well, what was that about? It says there was a man who had raped his own daughter, and they caught him, and he admitted it. So they hung him.
Mm-hmm.
No judge, no jury, no trial. Heinous crime. The guy admitted that he did it. They strung him up, and it's technically a lynching. He was a white guy. All the guys that lynched him were white guys because they're all fathers, and they understood.
I'm going to share something that I've never shared on Survival Dispatch News, and I'll just bring up this page on YouTube quickly as I speak to it. This is my ex-wife's older brother, and his name was Rusty, and he was quite a bit older than my ex-wife and I. We were both born in 1969. He was born in the early 50s. And she didn't have much of a chance to get to know him because he raped their 84-year-old grandmother and was sentenced to, 20-something, 25 years maybe in the state of Texas. And when they let him out of Texas, the very first thing that he did was rape a 12-year-old girl. There's your recidivism, Jeff. Yeah. But it gets even crazier. So if anybody wants to check this out, I'm not going to play this crap, but there's no O in Southern Rusty. It's easy to find on YouTube. I cannot believe after all of these years that this is still up. If you look at some of the titles, How to Overcome an Evil, Manipulative Woman, what drove this guy and his channel? He passed away 2015 timeframe. And what drove him to make all these videos was he sent my ex-wife 1,400 letters saying that God said that it's okay that you marry your sister and that you prostitute her. And he kept saying, and he was in North Carolina because at the time, North Carolina was the only state that allowed felons to have muskets. And he kept saying that he was going to come to Florida, and she worked every other week in North Carolina. And he said if he couldn't get her in North Carolina, he was going to come down here to Florida to kidnap her. And he was going to prostitute her out at truck stops, and they were going to make tons of money and live happily ever after as husband and wife. I took the 1,400 letters to the local PD, and you want to know what they told me? This is 2010. We had only had stand your ground for 4 years. They said, if he shows up at your home, if he steps foot on your property, you shoot him on the spot, and we have all of this on record now, you won't be charged because clearly your wife's life is in imminent danger from this guy. But I'd never dealt with anything like this before. So if you go and watch his videos, the level of evil and mental illness is unbelievable. So I just wanted to kind of inject that into the conversation because like I said, I've never saved it or shared it, pardon me, with anybody on Silver River Dispatch. So I don't have y'all's experience, got a little bit of experience with this stuff. JJ, I want to respect your time. What is treason.com is where people can get your movies. I don't know. I'm guessing you probably didn't catch this, but we had somebody come on one of our former videos that you were gracious enough to spend time with us. And they went off saying that it was bullshit that you would charge, $9-10 for a movie, $15 for 2 movies, and that this information should be free. Okay. And my response was, JJ and Ryan have spent countless amount of money traveling across the country, crisscrossing the country. And just like the rest of us, they have families and bills to pay and all that stuff that goes with it. Are you seriously going to begrudge them $10 to watch something on this? You know what his response was? His response was, no, I think it should be free. And I don't care what his financial situation is. Okay. And let's be realistic. My $10 isn't going to make any difference at all. And I responded back, well, you know what? I had a client a few years ago who was charging $9.99 a month for some very high-end premium content. They went from 0 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers in 18 months. That's $1 million a month in recurring revenue. And that $10 makes a big deal. So I'm not mentioning it to you to get you fired up. I mentioned it to you so you have a chance to address this person if they happen to be watching again.
Yeah, I got that from about 2 or 3 people. And you can go to thisistreason.com and you get 2 documentaries for $9.99. We didn't decide to do child sex trafficking documentary. God laid it in our lap. We didn't know we had it until we came back to look at our footage and we were like, oh my God. And then we spent the next 24 days pushing it out as fast as we could. We should have took us 6 to 9 months to do it. And 2 points I want to make. Clayton Morris of Redacted, of the big, huge podcast Redacted, he said to me, he says, if you give your stuff for free, that cheapens your work. And then the other thing is, just because you say it's free doesn't mean it gets reach. And then finally, I would tell that man, as I told this woman that lobbed this accusation to me, I said, let me give you my address so you can send me the $200,000 that I spent for production. And when you do that, then I'll give it for free. Go ahead, ma'am. When can I expect the $200,000 from you? Do you think that this is all free? Do you think that it's just that me and Ryan just got on Delta Airlines and said, hey, we're doing child sex trafficking. You can't charge me. And they went, oh, of course not. Please come in. We'll feed you and clothe you and house you. No.
So I said to this guy, JJ, I said, you clearly don't have a problem paying an internet provider. Yeah. You probably don't have a problem paying for your cell phone. You probably don't have a problem paying for cable or satellite. What's the difference? It's okay to give the money to these big corporations, but you can't help out citizen journalism that is cutting edge that nobody else has done. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, as I said, I bet he has a Netflix account.
Right. Yeah.
So he'll pay for Cobra Kai, but he won't pay for this. And the thing is, it costs money to make. And more importantly, the money that he collects on this one will fund the next one. If you want a next one, you gotta pay for this one.
And there are endless next ones that need to be made. And you're right. You just go the next step. So me and Ryan are supposed to spend 6-8 months of our lives every 8 months and spend $200,000. And I don't understand. What's the point? Because it's about child sex trafficking. You know what? At the end of the day, Chris, I don't give 2 craps about what anybody thinks. I didn't care when I was growing up as a high schooler, teenager, as I became a young adult. Now as get into my 50s. I don't give a rat's ass what anyone thinks of me. I don't care. If you don't want to pay it, then shut your mouth and go watch your whatever you watch, Cobra Kai. Just leave me alone. Why don't you do that? Why don't you just leave me alone? There's a million other things you can do, because honestly, it does not matter to me. I don't care. I've never cared what people think of me, and I sure as hell don't care now. I created something that I didn't even know I created. God made it happen. Here it is. This is what I've done. For $10, you get 2 documentaries. Good luck trying to get that anywhere. I don't even care if you watch it. All I want to do is get as much reach as possible, but giving it for free does not equate to reach. It just doesn't. And if you're so tight with $10, literally, if the guy is that hard, if somebody, which has happened, hey, I just don't have the money. Okay, here's a free link. Please watch it. So if he calls you back, Chris, tell him, hey, if you cannot afford it, JJ said he'll give you a free link. I'll give it to somebody that needs to watch it. I've done it multiple times, and they've been very appreciative.
For sure. And I will absolutely do that. And just before I let you go, David Sorensen is the guy who produced all these videos that I just threw up there, all these movies. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to do an email introduction. Stopworldcontrol.com. You two have a lot of synergy, and there's power, there's strength in numbers. So I'd like to share, to do an email so y'all can potentially collaborate on stuff. And for our audience, again, this is treason.com. If you have not seen JJ's content, you owe it to yourself to do it, just get a feeling of just how bad it is. It's really, really bad. And be prepared to be thoroughly disgusted at what you see and hear. So
I appreciate your time, guys, and allowing me to promote this documentary and my work. I think it is a unique documentary. I think Ryan Madden, my business partner that did it, is a genius in the way that he created that documentary, and it is powerful. And when you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. And I will also say that when you're done with 1 hour and 46 minutes, I believe you will have forgotten to exhale. You're going to be holding your breath the whole time. That you cannot believe what you are watching, that the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history, period. So thank you guys for your time, especially on a dark topic like this. Thank you.
I can attest to everything you just said, JJ. Appreciate it very much. Godspeed, my friend.
You too. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care. You too, man. Have a good one.
Man, he's awesome. I love JJ's. He got so much passion. He's tireless. He works his ass off at this stuff. So just a quick reminder again, this is treason.com. You heard him, $9.99. You get the 2 documentaries. You won't find anything like it out there. When those of us who were born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s and into the 80s, Saturday morning cartoons, Looney Tunes in particular, the average scene was 3 to 5 minutes long in those cartoons. And then many years later, SpongeBob came along, and the average scene is 3 to 5 seconds. And so we have a couple generations after me being Gen X and Jeff being a baby boomer that expect that dopamine hit every 3 to 5 seconds. And what's crazy is when you watch what Ryan did with the editing on these 2 movies, JJ's not kidding. It's like this. If you turn your head away for 10 seconds, you'll have to rewind it and go back and watch it, because you will miss important content and context in it. It's he's truly doing God's work. And for those of you who didn't catch it, by the way, he was a CBP special agent for 24 years. So he's not somebody who took an interest in the border and is, making uneducated opinions in movies. He's the real deal. So, all right, moving on from there. We've got quite a bit of ground to cover, but I don't think we're going to cover it all, Jeff, just because it's Friday night. It's been a long, exciting week. But I don't know if you had a chance to go through the brief or not.
I did.
This one absolutely floored me.
Yeah,
Speak to it. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm speechless, to be honest with you.
Well, one thing, to be quite honest, is racist. It's basically saying you can't, you can't pass a law against child trafficking because it's going to affect blacks and Latinos disproportionately. You want to go, so you're saying blacks and Latinos are child molesters? It shouldn't matter. And if you catch a child molester, does it matter what color they are? Does it matter what sex they are? Does it matter what country they're from? No. They're child molesters. They all need to be treated the same way. Who cares what color they are?
Let me ask you a question, Jeff. Right there, it would unfairly affect the alphabet community. Is that not an admission of something, or am I
Yeah,
not getting the context
that's the part that's, it's like, so you're saying, well, but you look at the recent mass shootings we've had in the country. Disproportionately trans individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fact. And how many times do you find when someone is grooming a child, especially a male child, on the internet for sexual contact? I hate to say it, they tend to be gay men. A lot more gay, a disproportionate number of gay men. But it doesn't matter. I don't care what your sexual proclivity is, what your sexual preference is. Straight, gay, trans, cis, whatever they want to call it, it doesn't matter. If you are raping a child, I don't care about any of that. You're done. It just doesn't matter.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, again, when I read it and they were complaining that it was going to, unfairly, affect the alphabet community, I thought to myself, well, if you're not doing these things, why would it affect you?
Yeah. Like, if you're not a child molester, you have nothing to worry about.
Right. So I don't know if you saw this. I'm glad to hear that you had a chance to go through the brief.
Yeah.
But this was very, very quietly. So 3 weeks ago? And so there's government reports on this that under Mayorkas and Biden and Kamala, which I think we clearly know that 2020 was a stolen election because of all the you got 15 million votes that just disappeared. So we're supposed to believe that 15 million people voted in the last election, which inflated Joe Biden, but they didn't vote this time around. That doesn't make any sense, right?
There's a real simple explanation for that. There was a rapture, but it happened on a Sunday and everybody was watching football, so they missed it. And 15 million people got taken away.
Okay. All right. Well,
simply, it's there and solved. No, but the increase in child trafficking under Biden-Harris isn't surprising to me at all, because how many of these children that are trafficked are from other countries? You bring them in because they don't have parents who are going to call the cops, who are going to file a missing persons report. They're from frickin' Ecuador or Colombia or somewhere. And, or they were kidnapped off the streets in Mexico City. There's no one who cares. So that it's easier to deal with the foreign kids. An American kid, for the most part, the parents are going to say, "Excuse me, my kid didn't get off the bus today. What the hell?"
Yeah, exactly. Let me see. So this article here is from the spring, and I forgot that I had it queued up. Should have probably brought this up while JJ was on, because it specifically speaks to the Catholic Church. And the only reason I put this in the brief was because I was looking for examples of child sex trafficking that I hadn't heard of. So in other words, nobody like JJ or Victor Avila had brought it to my attention, and it wasn't something I came across. And you know what? We could probably do, no word of a lie, 100-page brief inside of a half a day's worth of research.
Oh yeah.
On stuff like this. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this one. There's nothing particularly, noteworthy of it, besides the fact that it's terrible stuff. But let's have a look at this. If I'm right, was this in Arizona? This Prop 313?
Oh, life imprisonment for sex trafficking. Yeah, and it passed.
So, but what it's saying here is that 880,592 people didn't seem to think it was a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
it should have been like, okay, it should be like 4 million to like 5, and the 5 should all be, as yet convicted or, child molesters. Yeah, it did pass, but it is just, you've got the people who are like, oh, no, they're just misunderstood. They just need treatment. No, they don't need treatment. Well, they do need treatment. They need lead poisoning.
right. High-speed lead poisoning.
Exactly. Or slow speed. Take your pick. I don't care as long as it gets them.
I mean, I'm going to guess that the answer is probably no. But did you cross paths with anybody in Arizona who were against that proposition?
No. And it actually got very little publicity in the state. It was on the voter information packets, but I'd never even heard of it until I saw the voter information packet.
No kidding.
Yeah. So there was no real organized opposition to it. Of course, how could you do that? And there really wasn't a whole lot of organized to push it. But people just read it and went, oh, yeah, I'm for that. Well, most people did anyway, 2/3 of them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how do you vote against that?
That's what my whole thought process was when I came across that post. I mean, I don't know.
Unless those people say, well, no, I don't want them in jail for life because then I got to feed them. Let's just execute them. Well,
we're back to the this whole concept of these are irredeemable people. You're not going to reform them, in my opinion. I'm a layman, but
it's not just your opinion. It's the criminal research shows they have the highest recidivism rate of any offender.
Yeah. So this is a really long video. It's over 50 minutes. The brief for tonight's episode, like every night, is posted on our Patreon, patreon.com/survival dispatch. If you sign up for a free membership, you can get all of our briefs for free. There's 50% of the content we give away for free. 50% is for paying insiders. But I bring stuff up like this, then I mention the brief so that if somebody wants to go watch it on their own time, I would encourage them to do that. But by the same token, we don't have time to watch 50-minute videos here on Survival Dispatch News. But we do have time to watch the next two videos. They're both under 2 minutes.
These are the times that I am discouraged about my job as a representative and also just what happens here at the Capitol. We sat in a committee all day discussing whether or not somebody that buys little children, these are 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, they buy them for sex, that we tried to get a bill through, Representative Bradley sent one through, that was going to put these buyers in jail. Right now, most of the time, they get off on probation. Almost all the time, they get off on probation after buying a child and raping a little child. And we tried to say, well, they need to at least serve a minimum of 4 years. And then we sat and listened to the Democrats fight against this bill, fight against putting these people in jail, and came up with all kinds of reasons, including that these buyers are victims themselves. This is very discouraging, and it's also very disgusting for me that they would actually defend this. And then they voted completely along party lines. The Democrats voted 100% that they did not want to put these pedophiles in jail. They defended the pedophiles. This is why it's so difficult sometimes to do what we do around here. We know we're on the side of right. We know we're on the side of morality. And we get shot down by, I do not understand the thought process behind this, but we do get shot down. This is why I would encourage you to do a few things to help us with this. First, if you believe in prayer at all, please pray. We are fighting truly dark forces here. This is not okay. This is evil stuff that we're dealing with. And if you have the ability to come up and testify on bills or anything like this, please do so. Your voice is very important to what we're trying to accomplish around here. We are the minority, but with you, we become a powerful force.
I'm gonna let the next video run, Jeff, and then we'll have a conversation on both of them.
What is the typical outcome?
Death.
Death.
The average lifespan of a child that's trafficked is 7 years.
7 years.
Because with it comes addiction, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Suicide rate is through the ceiling. Because how do you get out? And I hear people say, well, why don't they speak up? You see with something like the Me Too movement, women come 30 years after they've had a single rape, which is bad enough. Any abuse is unacceptable. But now think about a child that's 12 years old, which is the average in the United States. We lead the world with the youngest average. It's despicable.
The United States, more
Of
than
America.
any other country on the face of the earth.
Life,
the worst,
liberty, and justice for all, right?
it's the worst perpetrator of sex trafficking of children.
Yes, and we've done such a good job. We've figured out how to commercialize it.
What does that mean?
In this country, on average, a child to a pimp will bring that pimp $200,000 to $250,000 a year tax-free. Now you have a real problem. A real problem. Because now, like I say, the demons come out. Because there's so many takers. So many that are innately in agreement with evil in this country.
You mean there's so many customers for this sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Wow. Last thing, because this is the last page that's at least on topic. I have a few miscellaneous ones after this, but check out the date on this. November the 8th at 4:59 p.m., Texas authorities encounter another group of smuggled children. Nearly a dozen unaccompanied minors were discovered among a large group of illegal aliens smuggled into Texas this week, authorities say. On Wednesday morning, Texas DPS encountered more than 100 illegals in Eagle Pass, which we all know where that is. We've all heard the problems. More than 10 members of the group were found to be lone children, one of whom was just 4 years old. So the only reason I pulled that up kind of to end our conversation on this horrific stuff, Jeff, is because, I mean, it's happening every single day. Like, this is not, some anomaly. It makes my head spin when I think about it, especially when I just did the numbers and you're talking over $600 billion a year. I mean,
you can't even wrap your brain around it.
I mean, I gotta guess that if you had a country whose annual GDP was 625 billion, they'd probably be in the top 20 or 25 economies and countries around the world, I would think.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty crazy number when you think about it. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm gobsmacked by this topic, and it's why I keep bringing it up and we keep on the agenda to kind of provide updates and whatnot on it. But I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that, Jeff.
It's depressing. I mean, it's horrible, but it's hard. It's just, guys, you just want to go have a drink.
Yeah, I think JJ nailed it when he said that, Trump has made some pretty big promises, and I believe that he can, follow through on those promises. But I mean, he's got to do all these things. That's why we put him back in power and why we love him. And, I don't know what else to say. I mean, a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah, we do.
It was interesting last time Doc Pete was on, by the way, where he said those of us with some gray in our beards are going to have to help with all of this stuff, whether it be interdiction of child sex trafficking or, the largest mass deportation in history. And it's funny when you mentioned, wetback. That was actually the name of the
under Eisenhower.
Yeah, Eisenhower, Ike, Operation Wetback in the early 50s. And if memory serves me right, there were 1.2 million Mexicans deported during that. And that's a fraction of what we've got on our hands now. I mean,
yeah,
depending on whose numbers you want to believe, 30 to 50 million illegal invaders in the country. And Trump has said on day one, he's getting rid of this birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
Which is a primary reason they come here, right? Because they get an anchor to it. But we've got some stuff coming up here in a couple minutes as far as homework for our audience, things that you can do to have a positive effect on this. But I've got 4 more tabs that are not directly related to our conversation that we had tonight, but it's worth listening to. The first one is, this is a fantastic idea on how you deal with the censorship industrial complex. Watch it and you'll see.
I want to ask you about the protections that we need for social media companies. How can we stop the government from being able to bully social media companies into censoring content that it dislikes?
With control over the executive branch, it would be surprisingly easy not to take the whole thing out, but to devastate it in effectively a single blow. All you would need is an incoming day one executive order that prohibits government grants and contracts to going to any private company or nonprofit entity that engages in domestic disinformation. It does what the Supreme Court should have done and said that the funding of censorship by the government is censorship by the government. That EO will allow you to go agency by agency and kill all of those grants and contracts that comprise the censorship industry. There are hundreds of thousands of people now around the world and tens of thousands of people here in the U.S. whose full-time, their paychecks, their livelihoods, their mortgages are effectively paid for by doing full-time 24/7 censorship work. This field did not exist 8 years ago. It was created after the 2016 election as a response to Trump winning to stop a night like tonight where he might win again.
I think that's pretty brilliant. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Well, you got to add to that any government employee, because you can't put them in jail because it's an EO, not a law, but you say any government employee who violates the executive order gets fired and their pension goes away.
Yeah, that should make people, stand
That'll
up. And
that'll wake them up.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Next one here. So this is one of Trump's attorneys, Mike Davis. I'll zoom in a bit so y'all can see it. He's much more articulate than I am, but this is a pretty good post on his part. Trump's opponents attempted to bankrupt him for non-fraud and imprison him for life for non-crimes and take him off the ballot and take off his head. Now they want unity. Fuck them. Let's unify them in prison. And
it works.
Well, he's the same guy who said yesterday that Letitia James should tread carefully because he'll put her fat ass in jail. And I mean, that's a whole other scam unto itself. Apologies to whoever's offended by profanity, but sometimes it's warranted, and I believe it is there. And he said that much more eloquently than I do, but it's the same point. There will be no unity. There will be no olive branches. There is no reconciling with people who think men can get pregnant and that there's 378 genders and then it's okay to cut off kids' genitals. No reconciliation at all. I mean,
there's something on the lawfare thing. I don't think a lot of people realize, and it struck me today. I'd heard it before, but didn't really sink in. Letitia James, Fannie Willis, and Kamala Harris all went to Howard University and were all there basically over a 4 or 5 year span from like 86 to 92 or something like that. Letitia James and Kamala Harris were there at the same time. I don't know if they knew each other, but when you have that much lawfare being driven by 3 people who went to the same school, not a big school, same school together at the same time, highly suspicious. Those were not organic legal actions.
Yeah, no, it's not just by happenstance, right? I mean, this is all, by design. Okay, so let's pull up the next one here. Almost got my studio completely put together here. Makes life much easier. Exclusive leaked report warns Venezuela sending intel operatives released prisoners to neutralize targets in the United States. So, of course, this is where TDA originated. The latest number I've read is there's still something like 2,200 TDA members in Venezuela. So I'm sure those are some of the, the shit bags that are being sent this direction. And I think Maduro should tread carefully, just like Letitia James, because if this report, in my opinion, if this report is true and if they follow through on this report, I will say Venezuela and Maduro in particular are in deep trouble because Trump version 2.0 is even more hardcore than Trump version 1.0 was. He's not going to put up with this shit.
Well, we did it to Soleimani. Why not do it to Maduro?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So,
basically an act of war in our country, so we respond in kind.
So I'm going to switch the order up a bit here. We're in the home stretch. I want to mention some of the things that we came up with as far as what people can do to have a positive effect on all of this stuff that we covered tonight. So the first one is to help support Doc Pete Chambers. He's actually here in Florida right now. He's at a church in Ocala. He was speaking last night and tonight and doing a fundraiser. So there's a very specific reason that you'll hear me recommend donating to the Remnant Ministry Texas. This is a nonprofit. Doc served 39 years in the Army, Green Beret, one of only 6 Green Berets ever in history to become a trauma flight surgeon. When he left, because he wouldn't comply with Lloyd Austin's order to do the injections on all the troops, he started patrolling the border with one of his horses. He has a farm. He's got cattle as well. And his dog, gathering intel, relaying it to our friends at Texas DPS. And this was before Jason Jones retired, who's now Newsmax's special agent, covers the border. So he's gathered a ton of intel at the border with his team. His team has grown. They're a nonprofit. Nobody gets a paycheck. He's done a ton of work on interdiction when it comes to child sex trafficking. And JJ mentioned Basil Boz. Basil Boz is very close friends with Doc Pete. And since Helene hit North Carolina, Doc and his crew, Mike Hall in particular, spent a lot of time in North Carolina helping people there. And they're on their way back next week. And they'll probably be there for another 3 or 4 weeks. Then they'll come home to Texas. Then they'll go back again. These guys are truly doing God's work. Again, nobody gets a paycheck. The donations strictly cover people's expenses. And some of y'all might not know, but Major Mike Hall is active duty National Guard, and he hasn't announced this, but I'm going to let y'all know because Mike's a character and I love him to death. He's on the fast track to becoming a lieutenant colonel himself. By this time next year, he will be a lieutenant colonel, just like Doc Pete. The next thing, and of course, we've mentioned this several times tonight, go to whatistreason.com. Pay the $10 to watch JJ's 2 documentaries. Prepare to be astonished at how bad things really are. And the last 2 things, homework, things that you can do to help in this horrible situation, is to be vigilant in public. And that could mean if you see a child being abducted, and it's not uncommon in parking lots. We've actually got some warnings from the sheriff's office here, and y'all have probably heard me mention that before. Don't stand there with a camera taking a video of somebody who's being assaulted, accosted, or kidnapped. I mean, those days are gone. And, if we're going to turn our country around, we can't just sit there and take videos. If you're physically capable of doing more, you should do more. And the last point to help out with this stuff is to help share our message at Survival Dispatch News and other truth tellers. So Elon nailed it the other night ago when he said that, this is the age of citizen journalism, right? So you're not going to get the truth from mainstream media. We all know that. It's propaganda, all of it. And that leaves us, those of us who are citizen journalists that spend a lot of time on this, at bare minimum, it's 4 or 5 hours to put together a brief for each episode, 7 days a week. Jeff, I don't know if you have a ballpark number, but I can tell you a number here. I wrote a piece of software years ago that took the body of every article that I read and then gave me a report at the end of the day on how many words I had consumed, read throughout the course of the day. And if it was a very light day, it would be 100,000. And if it was a heavy day, it'd be 300,000. So, and I know you're the same way. I mean, you've got a voracious appetite for information, and you have the same, I guess, MO that I do. I read something, and let's say for argument's sake, it's on Breitbart. I go straight to MSNBC to read what those clowns are saying. And then I try to find stuff in the middle. It's like they say, the truth is rarely on the fringes, usually somewhere in the middle. Although I think that the right-wing sites have got it right more often than the left-wing sites have in recent years. But throw a number out there, ballpark. How much do you read in a day?
Well, we get up in the morning. I read, well, I don't know how many words. I can tell you how long. It's usually 2 to 3 hours in the morning. Get up, feed the dogs, make the coffee, and then read. I get stuff sent to me. We go to X. I go to Randomly. I go to Bongino Report. I'll even go to the Daily Mail sometimes because it's amazing how much coverage they have of American stuff. I'll read a story about something happened in Tucson. I'm like, I didn't hear about that. But no, I try to look at, and I'll even look at left-wing sites like The Guardian. I'll go to Newsweek and all that. I want to see what the opposition is saying, and I'll dig around because we're always trying to confirm stuff too. If something sounds a little too out there, we'll start digging around, and then there's times where you'll find, okay, that was just somebody spouting off on X, and it's not actually true. But that happens. But you got to dig, be skeptical.
So I'm proud of my brother here, Kevin Ramsey, making this comment. Woodrow Wilson was a total jerk off.
Yes,
that was the beginning of the global cabal.
Yeah,
that's where this is the guy that it all started with, and it all went downhill from him on.
He was the first of the academic elites who say, we know so much better than you, just let us do it.
Right. And we're only going to charge you income tax to fund the war, but then we're going to stop doing that. And by the way, we're going to create this thing called the Fed that is a private entity. And we'll save that discussion for another day. But that Jerome Powell, for him to say that he would not step down if Donald Trump asked him to, is exactly what's wrong with the deep state and the cabal.
Well, and as I said before, what you do is you say, okay, we're going to audit the Fed, and you're going to be responsible for any discrepancies, criminally responsible for any discrepancies. Now, do you still want to stay on board?
Yeah. So I'm not going to play this whole video. I've been kind of saving it because the only thing that came to mind, and I sent this to you earlier, was Jabba the Hutt. And I have to share it just because, I mean, this is so bad.
Hi, guys. This video has been done a few times for me because I'm struggling myself. And I know there's others that are struggling as well as of the election results currently. Why, yes, every vote still needs to be recounted and everything else. Nothing is officially, but it is official. I just want to let you all know that if you need to talk, I will be available to talk. If you want to talk to other family members or anything, have a bottle of wine, an entire bottle of wine. It's okay. Having ice cream. Just talk to someone. Get out your coping skills, anything like that. If you want to not talk to friends or family, there is also, if you need, the crisis number, which is 988. Everyone is struggling, and I hope that somehow, eventually, we can all, I don't know what to say, right, but can't really say to get better because it's not, it's going to be hard. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys.
I personally think the only thing that she's struggling with is walking to the fridge and back.
Or buying enough ice cream.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What do you say? So tonight's conflicted question, of course, we want to see y'all's answers down below. And I felt that because, we just got through this election, that it was rather apropos. Do you feel that our country portrays enough strength when dealing with rogue nations? If not, what proactive steps should be taken to increase national security? And I know you're going to probably say the same thing as me and steal my ideas, because you're smarter than I am.
Well, then you go first.
No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was saying, no, I don't think we do, because if we did, they wouldn't screw with us. Like the Houthis. Okay, what are they? These are little tribesmen in Yemen. Do I want to go to war in Yemen? No. But when someone screws with us, what they need to get it back 10 times over. If you walk around, you carry a big stick, but you never swing it, nobody's worried. But you swing it a couple of times, they'll say, don't mess with them. And I think about when Reagan was coming in and the Iranian hostage situation was going on. It was 1979, 1980, 1981. They said, people asked him, how are you going to handle the negotiations? His response was, I don't negotiate with barbarians. The Iranians turned them loose about 15 minutes after he became president.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that the other side of the story is that Jimmy Carter said that his administration had everything under control, and that if he had just been in office another week or two, he would have got it done. And you know what? I personally feel that Jimmy Carter, he's a invalid now, basically on death watch, but I think that he was a good man. I think that he had a good heart. He was a good, caring man. The stuff he did with Habitat for Humanity left a very positive impact on this world, but he was not a statesman.
No,
so
he's the best ex-president we've ever had, probably, in a lot of ways, but he was not up to the task, because when you're a president, you have to be prepared to be brutal.
Yeah.
And he wasn't prepared to be brutal. He could have gotten the hostages back if he just put a Navy, a carrier group in the Gulf and started bombing the hell out of all their oil export stuff. They would have gone, oh crap, we're going to be starving to death in about 2 weeks. We'll turn it loose.
Yeah. The gentleman that I mentioned to you, and I can't say his name because, the Iranian government's tried to kill him a bunch of times, but the guy I mentioned that I met at Sam's Club, who was an Iranian commando, and there were 300 of them together, like from his unit, that were rounded up and assassinated, on their knees, shot in the back of the head. And he's one of 5 commandos that escaped just by the grace of God. We're going to have him on Survival Dispatch News. I'm sure that you and him will have an interesting conversation. And I'd like to get Admiral Bob Harward as well, because Bob's father was stationed in Iran when the revolution happened. And Bob attended the American High School in Tehran, and so did this guy's sister. So, kind of interesting stuff. So actually,
one of my instructors was one of the hostages.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. So actually tonight you didn't hit on what I was going to say. So again, the question is, do you feel that our country portrays enough strength when dealing with rogue nations? If not, what proactive steps should be taken to increase national security? No, but the Biden admin, which is the Obama admin, are the same pussies that they were in his first 2 tenures. And what proactive step needed to be taken was done on Tuesday, and that's elect Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
So that's why I felt that it was apropos to our conversation at this point in time.
Change of command.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, appreciate your time as usual, Jeff. Appreciate everybody out there. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless America.
Adios.
If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.